See, I mean, you know. Hey, good morning. See me. Excuse me, sorry. See me. Excuse me. Kimbo, Natatan Zambi Yamazulu, Yenge family, Yenge Keno, Luvuvamo, Yala. I want to wish you greetings to all of the Bantus, non-Bantus scattered across the world. Those who are part of this awakening, and those who are assisting with it. I'm coming before you once again. I apologize. This will be connected to what happened yesterday. I don't know what happened in the last 20 minutes of my video. I was discussing basically that the time frame I was talking about, basically we will see many things associated with the witnesses that are coming, in which the world will experience events that are basically that unstoppable. You know, so I've been kind of perusing through certain channels and movies, and I'm noticing that there's a trend now starting with a lot of end times movies. They had Armageddon, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. You know, these movies about end of the world, alien invasions, whatever you want to call it, and going over the hidden agenda that has always been what they're trying to talk about. I'm terribly sorry. Wow, I tripped the fan on some of the food I ate, I think. The conclusion of the whole matter, as I put on here, stop Congo no matter what it takes. The meaning to life and the things that people have been wanting to know, what's really going on and why is life the way it is. Hallelujah. First of all, I want to give honor Kembo and Gola to Tatanzambi and Pungu Talendo for this time to speak, that I might be able to honor him appropriately. You know, Father, I ask the forgiveness for any zonas against thee. Tatanzambi, help me to give a pure-hearted message to our people, to help us, everybody, to understand what's really going on here, and to give a message that will grow. Father, I ask that you send Malakis to block any blockages, to keep this message from being stopped, because this is going to go very deep, Father, that any attempts to shut it down will be thwarted, that the enemy will not succeed in any attempts, that the Malakis will block any attempts to stop what I have to say, and that anything that is said that comes from the heart of a Bantu Venezuela, a Bana Kongo, one of the untouchable immortals that they know is doing the work of the Most High, that will continue to do so at this time. And get the hallelujah. Yave Ben Kongo. Giving honor to Isaiah Kongo, to the Mwanvelila, to all of the people who are the 24 elders of the Isolele descendants, righteous. Um, I'm giving honor to all of our ancestry up until now. So, as I talked about the conclusion on the whole matter, why do we do and what are we going through and what are the circumstances of what we are experiencing? What is the true meaning of things as to how it pertains to today's life? Why do we see what we see or know what we know? And it all comes down to a hidden agenda. One of the biggest secrets that the world has never been allowed to know until now, as we begin to understand things more and more. One of the things that Hollywood has been trying to portray is end times. And one of the themes of the end times is stopping the cataclysm that is to come with a false mindset. We know that there were scriptures that are now coming out, and one of the biggest things that we discovered in those scriptures is where it talks about the end of the world is Esau and Yakubi is the beginning. So when you see the Hollywood movies and you see all of these various end time shows, the misconception is they always want to portray the end of the world. We must stop the end of the world. Well, no, it's not the end of the world of the chosen ones, but the end of the world of those who are attached to Esau. One of the things that will happen, as we know, is the changing to another type of being or spiritual being to withstand this event. Okay. When we look at history and the things that have happened in history, we know we see kingdoms rising and falling, we see emperors dying, we see people revolting, we see various things happening. We know religion has always been the backbone of many people's belief and the way that they believe and why they do, and the ancestors that they have been a part of, and all these different things that have happened throughout history. We understand that there have been events that are connected to uh, where we are today. Now, one of the biggest deceptions that we face in this world, okay, is the real reason why the world suffers the way it does and why things are happening the way they do and the conditioning of what you've been taught to believe. Now, of course, people can sit back and say, well, this is your opinion, this is your way of viewing things, this is, they've been taught and conditioned to believe certain things. There's a reason for that. Because the system as we know it, the way things have been taught, the way things have been, how should I say, implemented, is to hide knowledge of something. Okay? To hide knowledge of something. The reality of the situation is, for those of us who truly want to believe in what we believe in, we know that there's a creator just based upon the way life has been able. One of the things, not even Darwin could not disprove God, but they wanted a creator, but they wanted to actually uh, do their best to disprove it. Okay, they wanted to also create a belief system that would put many, how should I say, many groups of certain groups of people above others. Okay, so let's talk about this. Historically and scientifically, they always go back to Africa. Now, we hear that people talk about, they use the numbers that you've learned throughout history, millions of years, billions of years, whatever you want to call it, okay, civilizations and whatnot. How long have we really been here? Has certain things been erased, you know, or is there is there manipulation involved? The concept behind everything that we're dealing with today is based off of a mindset of those who lie in a superior position. Okay. Many of the things that they have done and taught and altered, you know, is based off of a perspective of those who rule. Okay. Everything else is all based off of what people would say is your own personal beliefs, the cultural beliefs. People go and they study, you know, one of the things that scientists love to do is to go and study other cultures with the mindset of trying to basically uh, alter the perspective of what the norm is. When they go in this, they worship tribes and they worship different things. They say, "Oh yeah, these people have been here for so long," and da 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 da. And okay, but the reality is they speak at it as if there's no connection to. They always say, "Oh, somebody always have. There's always a God. Somebody." They tell stories. They tell this. Okay, and they always use that comparison with the current Bible that's created. Notwithstanding that the current Bible that was created is in fact itself flawed. Okay, there's there's flaws in the Quran, there's flaws in the Torah, as they call Judaism. Judaism, there's flaws. Now, the understanding of our society is to make people themselves, how should I say, as if they can control their own destiny. And of course, we always have the pursuit of being able to control life and death itself. Okay. But there's an underlying issue as to what really people are not understanding. Okay. Is that there's some superior beings, whatever they may call themselves to those that they interact with the intention and the concern, as they like to say, about the preservation of the earth and the people who are destroying it, they will say. But the reality is they're trying to stop an event from happening. And this is what they always like to mock. Everybody's afraid of the giant gorilla. Okay? That's a theme that has been gone on for so many years. The giant gorilla and what it stands for. Okay? and to use whatever it means necessary to destroy this giant gorilla. Because this is a thing that's gone over since Hollywood for years. The error of humanity is to not have the question, okay, why do we believe the stories that we're told? Or why do we believe the knowledge that we're given? Okay. But when you begin to ask the why questions, you become the threat to that system. Why this? Why that? That's why they would always tell you, don't ask why, just do it. Yet the Creator himself would say you're supposed to question every spirit. Now, I know we have to obey our parents, and that's another story, but the reality is the way you can keep people from understanding something is to never give them the full truth. To condition them to believe things that may or may not be true. Okay? I will give credit to Yaya, our brother. I watched the video of Makai and Zombie and some of the things he was talking about, which was very credible. I give him honor for that. But I'll tell you this much, the CIA operative in the video was lying to you. Okay. Big time. He gave a scenario that has always been the scenario for any reason why America has been fighting is to deal with Russia. The biggest deception that was ever told to the American people in that regard was the understanding that Russia became an enemy when they were still an ally, which is not entirely true. Okay? Not even a little bit. They had to develop a hatred for one another so that they could hide the agenda. Many nations had to do this because it goes back to Psalms 83. Come, let us cut them off from being a nation. For the last 2,000 plus years, there has been an agenda in place to do something that many people don't even realize is the reality of the world they live in today. For those of us who would like to or are going to go ahead and believe in the fallen angels and the truth about the world being formed by a creator, okay, there we go. We are dealing with a misdirection that many people don't understand. A misdirectional concept, okay, which is to never allow the one who created this world to be able to put his agenda in place. To keep those who have the ability, that have the covenants, that are set up to be his people, to achieve whatever objective they intend to do. And we go to scripture, talks about Ezekiel 37. Okay. The last, even when Josiah was here, the world wants to call Jesus, from the time the Most High, the Nzambi, set up Salem, Salama, and we set up Isolele Isaela. The agenda has always been to not allow Kongo to maintain their position or continue to be the rulers of this world. Okay. Now, of course, there was the giving of the promise that was made from the beginning to Adama Yakongo, Adama, Tata, the Yaya, about his interaction and the sin that he fell with. From henceforth, it was always the fallen angel's agenda to do whatever it took to not allow themselves to become the victims of judgment, which they could see just like many other people could see. For they had the one who could see, Maya Mona, one who could see. They had foresight about many things just like any other. They just didn't know certain things, but their role was to make sure that the world never got to the finish line of the judgment day, because they knew the inevitable fact would be the eternal destruction of themselves. Okay. So it was inevitable that they would have hatched agendas to find ways to manipulate their way and deceive many to keep the day of Tatanzambi's judgment that even Hanok spoke about, Enoch, from coming to fruition. Okay. Tatanzambi, they knew always had a righteous people that would continue to push his laws forward. If this wasn't true, you would see that society obviously has a basic law system, which has always been built off of the Most High's laws. Okay. Even here in America, they will tell you that many of the laws of the Constitution were based off of the concept of the Ten Commandments, but in reality, they turned to work in the opposite with the concept that they're actually working with. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, take the Bill of Rights, set them side by side with the Ten Commandments, you'll see the contradictions. Okay. The mindset of this world was based off of a lie, that the intention was to make sure that those who would be able to bring judgment or bring the day of Tatanzambi upon this world would not come to its revelation. So the whole ideology was, when the Most High, after what happened in Kamata, had made a promise to a chosen people, at which at that time they would become, excuse me, the covenant. Okay, the mindset had to be that these people could never realize the potential of what they are meant to do. So when you look at the stories that's going on in scripture as to how many times our people fell away from doing the Most High's will, okay, the objective there was to not allow our people, this is why many spirits would show up and cause these different issues for us. Never let, when they saw how powerful we could be and the things that we could do and all the things that could happen, the concept is that we were not to be able, there were always going to have to be interference, okay, from bringing the angels to the judgment of the final day, and also to bring as many of us with them in the event of their failure. Okay. So let's go a little deeper. When you look at the civilizations that were created over the generations of time, the objective was to see the mindset that was given to these people was one of, how should I say, gods in the flesh, but they ruled, but that with the fact that their mindset was they had gods that they worshiped, but but their whole concept was about control of their respective, how should I say, their respective kingdoms, right? Going back to Nimrod, who was at that time the most powerful king, his whole its institution, his city was the largest, his whole reign, because remember at this time he controlled the whole earth. He was the most, at that time, he was the most powerful entity that we were facing that was doing against the desires of the creator. Okay. So now, when he fell, when he was taken away from his throne and the gods that he served at that time, the agenda that had formulated from hence therefore, okay, was to not allow the creator's people that he had chosen through Abana or Abraham to ever become the dominant force on this earth, because with that, that would carry the power and weight of the kingdom and allow the destruction of those who were in the mindset of wickedness. Okay. So the ploy that continues to even work to now was that as Tatanzambi would begin to knock down these kingdoms and they would rise and fall, that they would find ways to bring kingdoms back that would rival or be more strong or become more powerful than the previous one, with the purpose of maintaining the position that they were to be above the creator's nation throughout time, and that they would maintain a position of power and control of resources and control of all things, with the understanding that no one was to know throughout the history books the objective of especially coming after the Bana Kongo. This is why it was important for the devil to always make the Bana Kongo, the Abantu Benduela, the people, to turn their backs on their creator. Okay. So when you look at that base premise that I'm establishing here, the concept is to always use Psalms 83 that was written as their battle cry throughout the history books and even up till now, and stop any attempts to achieve Ezekiel 37. Okay? To stop any attempts to complete Hosea chapter 2. okay, to stop the agenda that was given to Kepa, that the world calls Peter, to feed the sheep of the Isolele that were lost, that Yesaya Kuswa Kongo had ordained to have happen. Okay. So what are we dealing with today? We're dealing with a world that the primary objective of the people of the places where you live is self-preservation. Self-preservation. Okay. To do whatever it takes to have self-preservation of whatever environment that you exist. And of course, what was then done is the concept of some form of a superior being that would assist with the self-preservation, which we know comes from a lot of the misteachings of our own people. Okay. So when you look at that and you look at what's being established in these societies and how manipulation has been, because the concept has always been to have to protect and control or be empowered by those who are leading the environment. They are leading the society. Okay. So what are the key things you have to have? You have to have protection. You have to have an established wealth system. You have to have a way to have people to do the things needed to maintain the kingdom that you're or the environment. You have to have ways to resources. Okay, because you're dealing with individuals. Because if you know the Most High, we know with Him, He can do things so supernatural. But He does that mainly for those who have a similar spirit with Him. Okay. Well, the people who do not, as you've seen in history, they must obtain it in different ways, but then they'll say, oh, so and so provide, or. But in reality, they're working way harder than they really should have, and they're using uh, different types of power and witchcraft and whatever you want to call it, sorcery that they were doing. And that was one of the things that had to be maintained in a certain environment of those who would know the truth and those who wouldn't. Because every society that has ever existed had to deal with the concept of the people not understanding the true agenda of the society. Okay. And so, here we are. What that did is to develop belief system contrary to the intent of what the creator wanted. And this happened in the days of Noah, and this happened now. Okay. But the biggest agenda, because of the arrival of Kuswa, that happened was to interfere with the restoration of a kingdom that would be holy unto all on the earth. Okay. This was something that was always the biggest threat to the fallen angels. So their role, because like I said, they had the foresight of many things that were to come, okay, was to run interference on any attempts Okay, see me. To run interference on any attempts of a restored kingdom that could bring judgment upon these powers. Okay, because the end of them would be the restoration of the kingdom of that which they hate. So let's start kind of thinking like a Maleki or a fallen angel that knows their fate of their eternity is sealed by those that are chosen by the Most High to bring it, right? So it would be in your best interest that this doesn't happen, but to give the illusion that it is happening, okay? And while you're working on this illusion, you're creating confusion and conflict and different understanding. You're using your ability to manifest power that other people cannot, to manipulate and misinterpret what people believe, so that the intended target of the knowledge that needs to be passed down, that started with Adama, okay, and then of course continued through Yesiah, who did a lot of things to help us, is to maintain the concept of righteousness while practicing unrighteousness, while doing what people seem to be the way society should be, contrary to the fact that it's the opposite that it should be. Okay. And in the event, of course, the intention is those that the creator that they knew would be responsible for this earth and be responsible to bring the judgment that is necessary must maintain a false knowledge of themselves. Okay. One of the things we saw after the fall of Salem is there were many people with power of Yesiah that were teaching. Okay. And they taught a lot of different things. Even that stuff, the seven churches that think they know, there was more to it than that. We know now that there was other groups, because Yesiah did say there will be other sheep that hear my voice, with the intention that he was setting up an alternative way, knowing that he knew the future ahead as to what things would transpire. Okay. He understood, like the Most High, that would be several attempts to not allow the kingdom to return to its glory after that time frame. Now, we fast forward to the 1300s, where the Most High began the process of restoring this particular kingdom here on earth. Now, the powers that be, because remember, rebel against principalities, could sense that this was something that would become a problem. Because at this time you had Judaism, Islam, and Christianity already formed, and they were already in the process of deceiving many about the truth. So now you have a kingdom that forms with pure knowledge of truth and understanding about the Most High's will, and what they need to be doing, the restoration of bringing the bride. This is kind of what Hosea chapter 4 was doing, is that he was starting, Hosea was trying to say is that we came back together, then we became once again people of whoring. Okay, that instead of doing what he gave you to do, you gave it away, because the Old Testament is also about the future. He talked about this covenant in the book of Hebrews. Okay, but the understanding was we were to be a people that would begin the process of restoring a kingdom that was meant to not only rule, but also bring judgment upon the nations. Okay. Now, of course, this once again becomes a threat to those who see their demise with whatever is to happen here. Hence the reason why it was necessary to alter the concept of the true scriptures among different groups, so that when those who would bring out the pure scriptures would come, there would be conflict. Okay. Now, of course, the issue that we have running into is the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, that there was a designated time the Most High gives for each thing to happen. A lot of times for this, a lot of times for that, a lot of times for these things, with the intention that the world would do what they were asked to do, which is to bring the restoration of the kingdom of Ezekiel 37. Well, those who don't know would have been willing, but those who do know that this was a problem, this was the concept of misinformation, the concept of replacement, the concept of teaching doctrines that would allow for people to believe in a certain way. Okay. That first started off with intimidation and fear of the truth, but it was all about, what did I tell you? Self preservation. So when you look at the kingdom of Rome, okay, at that time it was the most powerful entity on the planet, right? Well, when they saw the things that we were doing was operating in the power that they could not, okay, this was actually a problem, because now you have a kingdom within people, or powers within people, that exposes this whole concept that Rome is the king, Rome is the power, Rome is the authority. Okay, so of course they were worshiping the fallen angels in this kingdom. So to bring forth a kingdom that was flipping this concept around was an issue, you see. So now, uh, the ideology that takes place, or the thing that takes place, is to control what, because I mean, we know the devil's intent, he would love to be able to burn down the creation. But with the fact that he did not have this ability, and he was always trying to do the concept of going back to the kingdom and taking it over, right? So the intent was to find people that would be willing to achieve this objective. The Nimrodian thought process, as you will, that there can only be one true king. All right. So when we see what is happening, especially when it comes to what happened to black people, specifically Bantu people, the mindset of these malekis or angels, false angels, is that we must be able to manipulate what people believe so as to not receive the judgment that is to come upon the earth and us. That when they knew Paula said, "You shall judge angels," okay, they know specifically the group that he was talking to. They were there. Okay, they knew that the intent with that was this group of people would become a problem for us when the time of judgment, whatever judgment is allotted to them. Okay, so it was imperative for them to do whatever was necessary to create confusion. To take the belief that the Most High, the way of the Most High, was believing and splinter it. They splintered it in the beginning, and they splintered it now. Okay. Now, when the Holy Roman Empire rose up and began to establish itself as the authority of the Vicar of Christ and also the kingdom representative of the Most High, okay, the objective, if you look at the entire concept of the history, there's enough stuff. You can watch movies that even talk about it. They're pretty accurate historically. You can look at that history. It had to look like the mindset was for saving people's souls, when the reality was it was to maintain dominance, to be able to use a belief for control purposes, to determine who and what people could do and what they could not do, and always put the name of the creator on it. Let's put that spin on there, right? We see this concept even happening because this is something that we would do even as a people. We would do something, and even if it was unrighteous, we want to put the Most High's name on it. We put the spin on it, right? So that people would think that we're doing it the right way. I'm sorry, terribly sorry. So let's take a look at what has been happening over the last 500 years. We know that there were things happening in the history books that were happening, but what perspective are they always on is a specific group of people. If you'll know, okay, when do people first start to learn about Africa, about Asia, about the Native American culture? This interaction always starts with the knowledge of when they were coming into contact with the Europeans. So the knowledge of the history that you have of these different people has always been based off of these interactions. And of course, whenever the indigenous people would tell stories about themselves, the mindset was we must control what they say or people have knowledge of. Okay. And of course, one of the greatest tactics that was always used to push an agenda was labels. Labels. Labeling, and I took this even as a sociologist, it's called a labeling theory. The labeling theory is where you use, when you identify things and you attach the belief behind what you identify, so that people will see whenever you call something this, bam, that's what it is. If you call something that, that's what it is. Even if the labels are completely wrong from what they should be, the mindset is, the understanding is, the mind is, the more you tell people what this is, okay, eventually you will get them to go along with it. And sometimes that could be even through force, which is what happened in many times during the conquering of colonialism. Okay, we're going to force you to go along with the labels and the civilization and establishment that we have determined is the norm of societies. Okay, and of course you'll see as history goes, it was always considered justifiable, because we're talking about, this is the civilization versus the wild world, the world of wild and heathenistic practices, demonic, because of the concept of demon versus righteous, of unrighteous behavior. Okay, even though it may look hokey or something to you, if you don't understand it, the concept was to label or demonize things to cause a mindset of control. You see, because I was listening to a brother that they put out there, he said, why do black people hate themselves? Or why do we have issues with ourselves? It's because when you portray, and this is something that was even seen with Malcolm X, when you portray a certain group of people as a superiority or a godly complex, and you see that as righteous, then you begin to see yourself as the opposite. So then when you look at one another, you see everybody else, you have a tendency to treat each other poorly because of the perspective you have of what is black skin, what is, the colors are a problem. Being this color is, as has they have been shown that this is wickedness, because the being that color is good. Okay. So this became an important concept to use for those who knew that the biggest threat to them were the people that were affiliated with Congo. Okay. That you must, for those who are able to rule and judge accordingly, you must make them feel the opposite. This was the concept. Now, of course, this had to be done by causing those who were considered to be protected, or in a setting of where you had things that were causing interference, to be removed. Okay. So the one concept that the fallen angels always understood was that the chosen people of the Creator are at their strongest when they're doing what's right. But that they are left to their own demise in situations where they turn and don't do the things that they're supposed to. So this was an agenda for those who wanted to conquer or to destroy or always wanted to be in control of those who were the Bana Kongo. How do you defeat them? How do we destroy them? How do we keep them from continuing in the path that they're on? When it says come, and of course it says they take crafty counsel of their against thy hidden ones. Crafty counsel literally means do whatever it takes to come up with something that that changes the way people think about these people or changes the way people are. Okay. Excuse me. So when we see what happened 500 plus years ago, you have a group of people that were given the task of to not teach the righteous way, as they would like to say should be, but to teach the way of dominance. Okay. To obtain the things that would keep them in a position of power according to their own way of looking at their belief. Okay? And the reality of the situation at that time is to use what was actually done to them. For example, they were always supposed to be at war with one another, like the hybrids and everything that was going on in the past, as a way to manipulate those who have the ability and has shown the ability to conquer, okay, with a very powerful source. So the idea was always if you can disconnect the source, you can control the power. You control the power, you can control the knowledge. You control the knowledge, you can control what people believe. If you control what people believe, then you can hide the agenda. And you use those who have the same uh, thought process of a cold heart of about dominion, about power, about this whole desire thing to manipulate what people think. Okay, so then that particular concept is now that these people that you have uh, in a position of that control factor as you work in the process of manipulating and telling people different things about who these people are, what they represent, demonizing their whole culture. Okay, here we go. We'll keep having people want to cause interruption. Okay, by having people to run the interference. It's funny how this is the Russian because we talk about the dragon, and Pastor Mel talked about how the dragon was Russian, which is more than just Russia. I know it's that, but the understanding is you must look divided because remember, Kongo says Satan's kingdom cannot be divided against itself. You must look divided, but you're really the same. So as to not allow the connection, okay, that it is really has always been the kingdom of the Kongo versus the kingdom of Shaitani. Always. Okay. Because even in the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians and all that, they were believing they were doing good and righteous according to what they had determined with how those gods operated. Okay. So now, when we look at the society that we currently live in, this had to be the mindset, okay, sorry, the mindset of those who dictate what is true and what is false. Now, because this knowledge of those who run the system is to remain among those who run the system, when you encounter a person that has the ability to expose this, okay, this is a problem. Because these individuals, these group of people know, okay, that there's only, when we look at how they structured the Bible and everything, they said that we know there's only one group of people that fit this narrative, but we must make it look like it's another group that fits the narrative. We must disguise it so that the group that fits the narrative doesn't know they fit the narrative. Hence the reason why you create identity theft, why you create modified doctrine, why you create a society that's meant to think that this is the way things are. You create, you make people so busy with their lives that they don't have time to pay attention to it. Self-preservation. You see, even though people take care of their of family members, it still starts with self-preservation, which is the opposite of what was really taught by the Most High, was to, you know, put others before you. Okay. There's a very famous show that demonstrated this concept in a way that people didn't notice. When I happened to be looking at a rerun of it in the show Knight Rider, the knight is the person that's he's the one, he's gonna save the kingdom. He's gonna do whatever, he's gonna take care of whatever threat, and he's gonna protect his own. This is what the concept of the knight's oath. Defend the kingdom against whatever threats that they might be. Okay. But the concept of self preservation is self preservation of the way of life that we are enduring. Well, if you look at the history of France and England and stuff, they were able to recognize when people were creating a problem for that. And they dealt with revolutions, and they would handle certain things that they wouldn't stand for. Okay, and I don't want to go too much longer because I know sometimes I go too long. If I have to do a part two, I will. But the reality is that the societies were never supposed to know, okay, what really would bring peace or change the earth. That humanity could live without conflict, without destruction. There was always this false notion of what determines what is peace, what is righteousness, what is what determines peace, righteousness, right ruling, uh, all these different concepts of what really is the way it should be. And of course, one of the biggest tools to maintain that concept is a pride mentality that you shouldn't have. A pride in things that don't really matter when it comes to the real truth. A pride in things that you would defend if it's ever threatened. To bring a concept of trust to the masses that they would go along and continue to be connected to the agenda, while secretly you go about dismantling or destroying that which can become an enemy to your very being. Okay? So when you look at the people of Congo, you look at the people of Africa, you look at the people of the Bana, people who come from Zulu, the mindset had to be that these people, their identity must not be known once the Most High had decided that we were no longer his people. So as you see now, the fight that we're dealing with is the fight against showing people what is true and exposing the lies versus keeping people in what they think is the lie, the truth, while causing what is true to be the lie. Okay? Because as long as you keep this type of thing going, then people will not comprehend when the real truth is there. And you will continue to defend that which is the lie over that which is the truth. This is what the Messiah meant when he says, uh, this kingdom is not my own, this world is not my own. And he also talked about the fact that, you know, the will of the Father is the way to the path of righteousness. But see, in the societies that we live in, this whole concept has been tainted or erased to where you do according to your own freedom, right? What you think you should do versus others. And becoming more of a condemning society without but not realizing that you are versus the fact that you shouldn't be. So everything that comes about the concept of condemning those that don't fit your perspective of life, condemning them, saying the an inferiority superiority complex. Okay, this is what was necessary to maintain the delusion of who can and who cannot, in fact, bring peace and save and do these different things. That is why it was necessary, as America and other places were created, the distractions had to be many. Creating a false reality was necessary. Okay. Because the threat that was always there, the people couldn't know there was a legitimate threat, but you had to make it look like the threat was something that it wasn't real. And then you get people to fight for it and go after it and chase it and do whatever it is that they need to do, despite the fact that it's written or or they see or what they look at is to the contrary. And that you say and that you do things a little bit enough to hook people onto what it is you're doing. Okay? So the conclusion of the matter is those who rule cannot allow those who are supposed to rule to know this. Those who control cannot let others. So, in that way, the mindset that became the wicked mind of those who devised these plans was to cause those who could rule and could cause destruction, okay, to be in conflict with each other. And they would assist those in the environments where they live and think that they were the same, that it didn't matter. Everybody was the same. Everything was the way it should be. I gotta love these things. Okay. This is imperative because the algorithms that they talk about were designed for this purpose. The concept is to look at what people are doing, how people are acting, and manipulate it so that it works in the favor of those who are trying to deceive. Teach them certain beliefs and ways that they would buy into it, even though it may not be fully, completely true. This is why many of the things you learn in education, okay, you are conditioned to believe that what that teacher is saying to you is true. You're conditioned to think that what you're reading in books, there's validity to them. You're conditioned to believe that what you know, okay, is in fact reality of what the society, the system is. All along keeping the confusion that leads to order and guide that all the way. The more confusion you make, now you can order it. The more confusion you cause, you order it. Until you finally get to the point where you realize we must now really control that. When the reality started to hit about the truth that we're seeing now, it could be that's what they say, the truth could be staring you in the face and you deny it. Okay. When we go to for example, when we go to what Kepper was saying, okay, uh, you know let's look at that real quick. Let's go to First Peter, First Kepper. Let's see here. I'm almost done. So let's go to First Peter, first chapter 1 and verse 7. It says that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with the fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Kuswa Kongo, Isaiah, Yesu Christu, whom having not seen, ye love, and whom though you now see him not, yet believing ye rejoice with a joy unspeakable, full of glory. Okay? So the way you mess people up about that particular scripture is you determine what worth is. You determine what is value and what isn't. The labels become crucial here. The labeling concept is huge. Okay? This is why it's you call things, you change name, you use different types of names, you use different types of words. All these things, they have power, they have understand, they can change the way people think and condition them into a life that may or may not be true. Because the hidden agenda is there is a threat to those in the power structure that know what causes their demise, but they can't know that. You see, so when you look at what happened in Africa and Asia and different places, you look at particularly Africa, that hatred or that fear of those who can cause problems require you to do things in secret to maintain the illusion. For example, we talk about Simon Toko, Sidon Kimbango, Simon Padi. Because of their abilities, they become such a threat so as to devise a false narrative for why you must go and deal with these people. Secrets must be told about what's happening in the world. This is where you control what people think using the media, using the news, using television, whatever you want to use. You tell people a certain story, you believe that story. Is it true? Is that really the real reason why are you even in Africa? I mean, that's the one thing that I asked even when I saw this. No one's asking the question, what is the CIA? What is your business there? The KGB, Castro, other people. What is your business there? If these people are independent, why do you have to be there? That is the whole concept of continuing to push a false agenda to intimidate those to continue to believe in something that is not true, and make them proud or to be connected to something that is really a manipulation to hide from those who are the biggest threats. So you create false threats with the intent that you're destroying the bigger threat. Okay? This is the reason why Isaiah said, you will be hated, not loved, because you pose a threat to those that know that they're living by a false agenda. And when you can expose it, you must be considered the enemy. Because the world does not want to know the truth, because the world itself is of the devil. So you must always maintain a hidden mindset by controlling what people see, eat, drink, whatever, that could cause them to not be able to be as effective with what they view, especially those who have that frequency that was given to them. So when we look at the agenda that's now unfolding, okay, we know that there are those out here who have every intent to not allow the events that are unfolding to continue to move forward because of the fact that they know the real agenda versus those who just have been told what they've been told. But they can't let on to those that they have been lying to until the time comes when all shall be revealed. But they now starting to act as though they no longer need to put on this facade as much because the inevitable is now happening. They have the mindset, we can now be the people that can truly rule when we get rid of those who are supposed to rule. With everything that we have planned, with everything that we have done, we've done enough to deceive many of them, as we have with our various what do they say, our crafty counsel. We have done enough to poison those, okay, that are the biggest threats as we give out false threats. Because if you get society looking at the threats that, of this earth and about self-preservation and all that kind of mindset, and of course the pride factor of the different things that they create pride in, then you're not paying attention that there's a whole nother thing going on behind closed doors that you don't really know. And then you can manipulate what people believe by controlling what they know. And so when Tatanzambi or the Most High or the Creator came in and began to lift the veil, so to speak, it became the initiative that these people, just like what happened, that they understand they cannot come to know who they are or leave or anything, because then what is connected to them goes away from us. Because they've always known there was a connection between the Most High's people and what they receive in wealth, and the other nations who always had to scavenger for it because they are, in fact, Esau, who is now the world. His curse was he was always going to have to go and search for what he needed. Yakubi would always have the blessings of what he's supposed to have. And this is, in fact, the reason why they are working towards their so-called controlled mindset of what you have been learning is what helps people to misunderstand what's really going on. For a prime example, what China just did by launching a sun was something that was done even in the days of Noah, where they were trying to show that they were gods, greater than he. This is all what this is. It's a repeat. They are trying to demonstrate to the world that they are, in fact, gods greater than the Most High, but they're not telling the people what they're really doing scientifically, and everything that they're doing is to be creators of their own, to dictate their own future, to live as long as they want or die when they want, not to allow that to be determined by nature. Okay? Because the reason why they're doing that is because they know better than those who think they know where they're going is the right place. They're like, hey, we suckered you. We know better. It's not going to play out the way you think. That's why they want to live for eternity. Because they know what they're facing, so they create ways to cheat death. And they keep trying to cheat death. Okay? So when we look at what's going to happen now in the future and the events that are unfolding, is that every day as we go into 2022 is to keep those who now the shift is here. They know that they're going down and the Most High people are coming up, but the world can't know that. Those who have already been put into deception can't know that. And those that do know it, they must fight for self-preservation, because that's what this is now. They're fighting for their preservation with the mindset that they will be victorious in every attempt. That's why they put it the way they want to put it, that when things start to happen to them, they'll always defeat and overcome and be the victors of their God victory, because that's what that word really means. It's a God. That they will be truly able to be the valiant, that they will defeat in order to benefit their society. Okay? But see, what they don't tell you, and this is always what's happening, they're seeing already that there's a disparity from those who know better. That's why they're trying to run. They're trying to say, oh, we're going out of space, we're doing all these different things. Because they begin to realize the power that exists is greater. Even though they think that they can go chest to chest, toe to toe, whatever they want to do all the time. And that their world will be according to what they desire. That they don't have that they're not going to lose this that they're going to be able to be able to defeat the agenda of the Most High. And this is where it's coming to now, okay? Is that they're setting up that agenda for those that are the few that are going to be given this privilege. Because now they're saying there's no need for us, in their mind, to care for what we feel is a problem, because they look at all the things that's wrong with the earth as a problem that must be dealt with in their minds. And all these problems must go away in order for us to be where we need to be. The dominant power. Okay. So this is the mindset we're going to be dealing with the whole year and the continuing the years to come. Is that whole mindset of setting things up the way they feel need to be, not realizing it kind of coincides with the Most High's intentions of this world he's changing. However, the control factor is not what they're thinking. They have it in their minds they will always be the ones in control of this, when in reality, the people who are chosen will always be the ones that have the control, no matter what. Just like Isaiah said, just like Toko talked about, it's like he said, you can't do anything to me that I don't allow to happen. You can't do anything to me that Tatan Zombie doesn't, that Tatan Zombie hasn't allowed to happen. And this is going to be the conflict we're dealing with, you see, because the threat is Congo. Because once the Bana Kongo or the Congo or the Benan Zombies, the Bena Bilaka, are able to reach that precipice, as they call it, of their understanding, then it's over. They know it changes the whole thing, that it comes to, now it comes down to the right rulers will now be in position. And we can't have that. That's why they're doing what they're doing, to fight people even now from going to Africa. Because they know what that means. And they want the Africans to not know the real truth behind what's going on, even though they've been given revelations of the truth. And of course, then you got people who want to teach other concepts and whatever they want to teach, but they don't understand. The angels themselves know who is the threat to them. The fallen ones, the watchers, the so-called the fallen watchers. They know who the threat is. But they must not let the world know that they know who the threat is. Okay? And that's why we become, I talked to one of our followers today. They're struggling with this concept because it's not an easy thing. You have to remember, every institution that does not go with the Most High is against us. Every institution that counters what Tatan Zambi preaches, what Akongo said, what Yave, what Kuswa said, all of these different institutions of the world today are against us, because they're now about self-preservation, their way of life. And you pose a threat to that. So they must keep you in the dark about the truth. They must keep you in the mindset of what you think. And that is where it talks about in 2 Thessalonians, their strong delusion, that believe the lies. And they must put people in a position where they also manipulate and continue to keep you in that, focused on things that really don't matter. To suck you in to the way of life that they see the way it should be and the way they've created it to be. That to come out of it is a problem. When they say, oh, come out of your comfort zone. Well, the true comfort zone is to come to the identity of who people really are in this world, because not everybody's the same. This has been a deception. But they all can still be considered savable through the right channels. The beacon of light to those who don't know the Most High like we did. But if you don't channel the beacon of light correctly, then the world doesn't see what's really going on. You see? And I'm going to end it there because I know it's an hour and 40 minutes. But you have to come to the realization in this time. Learning the Bakongo roots, the purity of them, the true purity. Right, while they masquerade, correct. We must reconnect with the purity of who we are as Bana Kongo, as Bana Betu, Bana Betu, of Isolele, of Isaela, of the people of the book. And realize we were meant to be the ones, but we must do it in righteousness, not in deception. You're not entitled to that position unless you do the will of the Father. People don't understand this. Just because you call yourself a descendant doesn't mean you will be a king or queen because it is a remnant is based off of your relationship with the Father. If your relationship is actually causing division with the Most High's people, then how can you consider yourself to be in the will of the Most High? If you are doing things that the Most High has not sanctioned in reality, because you must always verify, because there are a lot of people out there that are doing things that they think the Most High is in, and He's not. Because the one thing that I've always learned about Tatanzambi and Pungo Tulendo, when he is in something, nobody will stop you from achieving it at all. Everything will be moved from your path to get to where you need to go. You will become well known by others to say, man, we couldn't even, wow, this person really got it accomplished. When they use it, okay. Now, of course, you have the people who is masquerading, they do things similar. Hallelujah. So the title is fine, but are you living up to the way it's supposed to be? Are you? Is your men? Are you in the proper heart condition to say that you fit the role that you're called for? Because you must remember to be like Isaiah, to be like Kuswa Kongo, to be like the Mwandan Semi of the Most High, is that your role as a royal is a servant to your people. See, because we didn't want to accept this concept, we were forced into manual servitude because there were those who didn't comprehend this concept. You are not supposed to be in a position where you're so high and mighty that you don't serve the people in righteousness. This is where many of our kings in the past got it wrong. They were more about who they were as a person and their position on the throne, and less concerned about the well-being of their own followers. This is the issue that goes back to Samuel, when the Most High said, I am your king. And then he said, for every king that comes after this, there will be issues on the throne. And this is what we're dealing with today. Go back and read it. He made the statement, hey, I was supposed to be the king of Isolde. But since this is how you want it, anticipate you will have problems down the line. And it happened even, this is the main reason why, eventually, even when we became back into a kingdom, it would eventually come to ruin unless you recognize that Tatanzambi was the king first. And we didn't always do that. All right, so the Vuvamo family, Ayala, Zola Klingi, Sambololo, Santisana, Yenge, I want to help us to realize, okay, it's our role to serve one another in this awakening. To the Bana Kongo first, then to them. Just like Paula was saying. The way it should have been. Not the so-called, but the real who we are. Those who are really Yakubi, okay? That is the key to the connection. And to see, the enemy knows that this is what brings the Kintwari together, is when you put yourself aside and your desires, but you put the Most High's desires first, and make sure that what you're doing is His desire or His will, and don't just assume that it is. You see? All right. So I wish you all have a blessed week. Rest of your week. I may not be on too many more time this week because I'm still, doing my best to be in spirit and try to get more connected. I watch other people's videos too, if I can. But this is a significant part of who we are. We cannot be so haughty and proud and boastful. Yes, it's great that we're a nation. We want to hold our heads up high and know that we are royalty. But that also comes with the fact that you need to be more concerned about your own people and the love you have for them than your own self. And foolish pride, as you can see, even with the nations. Look what's causing them that's what's causing all the problems. They were so prideful in themselves that the Most High is knocking them down. And they don't even recognize that this is what's happening to them because of the delusion. The pride was meant to be used as a means to say that I'm the best, we're the best, and turn it into a competition, which is what they did. You see? And then still think, oh, this is God's way and whatever. No, go look at it. All right, family. Sambololo, Zola Klingi, Inaweza, Yave Kongo, Kutwala. And like I said, this is what's going to happen from here on. Okay, everything that they do is it's because Congo is the threat, and they must make it to where Congo can never reign, even though the world may not know that. But the Most High will overcome, and He will do what's necessary because He already knows what they were going to do a long time ago. It isn't like He didn't know. He knows everything they do. We are the ones coming to the revelation of certain things, but we will also know what they do when we're connected to the Spirit. You will have foresight just like they do once you become more spiritual. But that also comes with the fact that they will know. So you become an even bigger threat. You see? But that time is coming when we have more clarity of what they do and more understanding of what they know and what they do for many of us as the veil lifts. All right. All right. Sambalolo Zola Klingi.